It's two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? So Alex, like I said, it's great to be with you today, and a couple of guys just talking about our hopefully conscious path, right, as male leaders in the world. And yeah, I'm really just very interested to find out more about what it's been like to be a more like myself and the guys I'm interviewing, like to be more on the sensitive, in your case too, deeper side, right? A lot of the guys I'm interviewing are deeper, and yet we're guys, and when we've grown up as guys, often that's a little awkward for us as guys, because there's a lot of other guys that aren't that way. They're all focused on other types of play the trusts only or whatever, like just that sort of stuff, or outward focused or whatever, all the things that boys are socialized into. And yet I find like a lot of the conscious male leaders anyway, sometimes they had traditional kind of upbringing, guy kind of stuff, but often there's variations or is very different. So that's actually the area I've been exploring first with a lot of the guys I've been talking with. So like for me, I didn't have interest in all that stuff. In my case, like cars and stuff like that, the guys get really into, oh my God, this engine, this carburetor or whatever. Like I wasn't that into it, it just really didn't matter that much to me. I was into sports, but some of this other stuff, war guns, things like that, I just really could care less about that stuff. So I was just kind of wondering on that level, like, what was it like, being Alex, growing up as a guy, for you? What was your path like in dealing with those sorts of things?
Yeah, so I don't think I ever related to being a guy or not a guy, or just, I don't think I thought it, I had that perspective then. My direct experience was, I didn't play in the playground. So if we go back to like third grade, I didn't play with people in the playground. I went to the library and I read about Greek mythology. I would go home sick, like literally like sick in my stomach. I go home and then I could read stories. And of course I wouldn't be sick the moment I got home and started reading stories. So there was something for me about imagination. At this point, I could point to archetypes. I could point to a need for wonder and beauty. But back then, it was more like an escape, and it's just like I just don't belong here. I go there, and I didn't communicate that to anyone. I didn't have anyone who asked me those kind of questions, or that I had conversations with like that. And in fact, I was thinking about this recently and talking to some groups about, story, like what is it to share stories? Like, how was your day? And I remember, as an adult doing some inner work with my inner child and having the realization that little Alex really wanted to like talk to his dad and like, what did you do today? What do you do? And in my imagination, in that experience, I hear him say, oh, well, I went to the airport and we fixed airplanes. It's like, but that's what I do. But the difference that I made was because we did this, people didn't die on their flight, like planes didn't crash, people got to go visit their families, like all these benefits, all these differences. well, of course, I didn't have any of that awareness back then when I was a kid, but now it's like that drives me. And I didn't tell stories. We didn't have conversations at dinner. I didn't feel safe to share from it. If I did something for the weekend, or I went to martial arts, or I did something, my mom said, "Did you have fun?" For me, the answer was just nope. Like there's no story. And again, looking back at it, I could say that there was a sense for me that if I did start to tell a story, I would stutter, or I wouldn't finish, or somebody would cut in, or something. And so I didn't have any kind of an experience really of expressing myself. The one place that I did express myself, and it was a bit of a journey, was through physicality. I also, like you, I didn't like sports. It was like that just makes no sense to me, no
Mhm.
interest. And I did have friends that surfed, so we went surfing, but it wasn't, there was something about it, but it wasn't like the process of getting in the car and going to the beach was amazing for me. It's like helping us all go there. It's an adventure. But the surfing itself was like, I'm alone in the waves and this isn't that fun. The idea of it was fun. Uh, but then I did martial arts and I did Boy Scouts, and in a certain way, like black belt didn't make sense. I had no interest in that. And uh, merit badges, and it made no sense. It's like, how do you teach me something that I barely understand and then give me a merit badge for it? It just didn't make any sense to me. And I certainly didn't feel confident. And then I did get to magically, serendipitously train with a really, really special, unique martial arts teacher. And what he had developed was extremely unique and authentic and resourceful and dynamic. I got to express myself through that, through the fighting, through the hand-to-hand combat, uh, but not through story. So I guess to summarize all of this, what it was like to be little Alex was, searching for some way to express myself. And through expressing with my words, that wasn't available. Through expressing with my body, that was a search to find something that felt good. And then through sort of immersing myself in worlds that were structured and archetypal and beautiful and wonderful and fantastic, those felt like home. And that was kind of my world.
Mhm. Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like pretty profound too, what you said about the badges and the belts. It's like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And kind of what I mean, what comes across for me when you say things like that is that this might be my bias, but I'm like, you sort of had this awakened, enlightened self, like that you're kind of connected to already at a younger age, right? Like that's what it reminds me of myself that way. Like I had like just us two guys talking, not to make generalizations to others, but like that is similar for me. Like I was like, why don't we just love each other, and we people argue and have all this nonsense, and it's just so ridiculous. And so like that'd be one way it showed up for me, but these different ways it shows up and the things that just don't make sense to us, what we're told are important or other people think are important. You definitely want to get a black belt, then we know you're for real or whatever, like these different things. And so I thought that was really interesting. The other thing too, when you talked about your dad, and it sounds like partly you weren't a big talker, but like also like you're kind of maybe some of the socialization too of there's a lot, like there's a lot of different, it's a that would be a stereotype too. There's guys that talk a lot, but like, sometimes there's certain men that, and women, but like men, I see it a lot where they don't get too deep into anything, they just like, just staccato, just what happened. This is what went down today, like, and so that I was hearing that and that. So you didn't have really a kind of maybe a male example with your dad anyway of like what it's like to go really explain or really dive into all these different things. And I think my dad was a little bit like that for sure. But so I'm just looking at that, that piece, and like all our dads are different, but I thought that was pretty interesting that you know, you were connected, you sound like you're a little more inward, didn't know how to express you found the martial arts to express yourself through, and that was you know, part of it. So anyway, just taking it in, and the Greek mythology and all that, I mean, that's remarkable as a kid to be into that sort of stuff. And you know, so far I've heard other guys I've been talking to, yeah, it's totally into spirituality from a young age and everything. And I think that's so interesting that some of us were into the deep stuff at a young age and we're just drawn to it, you know, naturally it just called to us. It's just very interesting to me.
I don't think a lot of people get acknowledged for what's important to them, and we get imposed on with what people think is important, which I think in a lot of ways, like I can watch myself do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I get it.
Right.
And it seems like a pretty natural thing we do. I could imagine lots of good reasons for it, to keep the tribe together and keep us safe, and all sorts of good reasons. And I just love the idea, like you don't teach a fish to climb a tree. And at the same time, it's like, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but like this is a phone, right? It's a phone, it's a computer, whatever, but I'm going to use it as a phone with all the apps.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to use it as a weapon, it's like, okay, I'm going to use it as a weapon. Now, if someone came in and I need to defend myself, I could use it as a weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just deciding to use it as a weapon is sort of weird when it's obviously a freaking phone.
Right.
And I think there's something like that for ourselves. It's difficult to see what we are. It's difficult for other people to see what we are. But when we're in certain contexts, something comes alive. I think that's something powerful to nurture. And that was something that my teacher, the one I mentioned, gave me a lot of lessons in, because he was so creative and resourceful. And so for him, it was all about self-defense. It's like, okay, here's a quarter. I can use it to defend myself. I can use it to fight. And somehow I had that ability that if you said, okay, give me a workshop on transformation for relationships, and specifically about breakups and dealing with breakups, and you have to use these headphones as the theme. It's kind of like transformational improv. Like there's something in that I've always felt very, very good at, probably partly because of me, and probably partly because I had that resourcefulness training when I was young. But as far as men go, as far as leaders go, leader and masculinity and all these words by themselves, to me, seem to, on the surface, be confining more than liberating. They're deadening rather than alivening and generating. But if we kind of catch someone doing what they do and help them reflect that, if you see something that I do, like, oh my God, you just did something that was genius. I didn't even realize it. Then there's something there. It's like, that's what I know that for me, that's what wants to grow. It wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be expressed. Then I have this natural ability to tell a story about it, and draw it, or write about it, or poem about it, or teach about it, or something, and pursue it. That to me is a worthy game and a worthy journey. That's like, oh, what if that was a sport?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you weren't, you know, didn't have that sense of telling stories as you're growing up, and yet inside of you, you have this ability to do that. Like, wow, how amazing that is to do it now, right? Like, wow, I'm actually good at that. Like, whereas you were more quiet, or, you know, not so expressive, you know, when you're younger in your life. I think that's really cool. Kind of reminds me of when I look at myself, like I was very shy or introverted or whatever. Yeah, all words are confining, right? It's just, you know, but when we're talking, we use something, right? But whatever it is, it's like I had that sense of a lot of connection, a lot of connection to energy, and people call it empathy or whatever, and yeah, just would stop me in my tracks from talking sometimes in a lot of different situations. But yet that's my gift. Now I do all the, tuning in, energy scannings, can understand people. I was just giving dating advice to my daughter the other day based on just being able to scan people. I'm like, well, if here's the situation, if you date this person versus this one, or what, like that sort of thing anyway. And now it's like this beautiful gift I have, yet not having instruction on how to use that gift. I just felt kind of lost, growing up, sad, depressed, suicidal thinking, and violent thoughts, although I never really acted on any of them so much. But just, yeah, as a guy, like, I just felt like, well, I'm so much different than everybody else, and then what does that mean, like that kind of thing. And times I thought I was superior, and there's times I felt inferior, right? Like that whole dance. I was curious about that. Did you ever have any concepts like that? Like, geez, I'm like this as a guy versus these guys, and what does that mean? Or does your mind ever entertain that, growing up, or even as you've been an adult? Or
in some ways I wasn't reflective like that growing up, and in certain ways I'm not even like that now. It's like, oh, I'm not like them, but it absolutely, it's there,
mm-hmm.
but it's not something I've like journaled, done a lot of journaling about in a
Mm-hmm.
reflective way.
Mm-hmm.
But I can absolutely say that I didn't ever feel like I belonged. I'm just thinking about, like, I always felt growing up that I could bring different groups together, and that was sort of it. So I was like, oh, because of me, there's some adults, there's some surfers, there's some, some of the nerds, there's a couple other people that I don't know why they like me, but okay, cool, and they're here for my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
They would have never met, had it not been for me, because they're in their groups, but for me, I don't have a group.
Mm.
And so that's carried through. And the way I've solved it, or the way I play with it, is I've asked these sort of three questions as I grow. One is from this realization, like, it's not really about making people happy or an impact or difference. Like, it's not really, because if it was, I'd be able to do the thing that I do, close my eyes, cut out any information or awareness about the result, and be okay with it. Right? But if I'm saying, oh, I want to impact these people, or I love it when they feel whatever feeling as a result, or I love it when people have that experience, then it's not really about what I'm doing. Because, how do I say this? If we can cut that off and say, like, no matter what the result is, this is still delightful and sustainable and energizing for me to do. If nobody else bought this for me, gave me any attention, nothing, what's left over for me to do? Well, we're going to eat, we're going to poop, we're going to rub our muscles. Like, we're going to do things that are real.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that real stuff is going to be fantasizing and creating and poetry and making things up. But it's all going to feel real and meaningful. And that's it. Like, if we could go there. Then the dangerous question is, what if somebody really appreciated this, gave me appreciation, wanted to do it, wanted to watch me do it, whatever, like art, coaching, name it, cooking. What if, oh my God, somebody wanted to pay for that, tell their friends? And now it's like, am I willing to receive positive, good attention for my gifts? That's a whole workshop. If someone's stuck with it, that's a whole thing to consider. And then the third would be, this is where I think we as like spiritual impact makers and leaders think where we're going is, well, what difference is this going to make for other people? Which is really to say, am I okay with these positive stories and this snowball effect, this upward virtuous cycle? And I think that whole thing is freaking invisible. It's never talked about. We don't learn it. Nobody coaches on us, coaches it on us when we're growing up. And so people like you and me who are sensitive, spiritual, interested in the occult, have different knowings, different gifts. People don't see it. We don't know where these things belong. We don't know how to use them. And then we've got whatever biological or energetic masculine drives, which is like, put me to use. I need to use this, else something's wrong. It's like, of course we're going to have suicidal thoughts. Of course we're going to think this doesn't freaking matter. I have. So I think there's something very important and special for special, important, sensitive, spiritual men, especially, who we can't get away and shut and quiet that drive for use. Maybe some can. I don't know what that's like yet. And yet we do need to find avenues to express it. And we need to be okay with the forms of that expression. And then we need to be okay with those forms of that expression ultimately being appreciated and loved. And I think those three questions, at least for me, they reveal a lot about what's in the way and how to clean it up and how to simplify it. And then the real scary thing is like, oh my God, on the other side is, I'm practicing ukulele. I'm channeling in a whole universe of cartoon animals and drawings, and want to do plush toys. And I did a children's book years ago, but it's all about authenticity. It's like weirder stuff that doesn't fit the mold. It's like, I'm doing it. Right. Like, why would I not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, what seems crazy to be doing now is considered genius later by people, even if people don't get it at first, right? Like often anyway. Like, oh, that was genius. People didn't maybe get it at the time, or maybe they do, sometimes they do. So, but yeah, I love that what you talked about, like this. So yeah, like, again, they're just concepts, but like this idea of like the infinite, or sometimes people look at, well, that's the feminine, when you're just like in presence and, you're sensing things, or, something wants to emerge and it's from that field. And then the masculine's like, okay, but what do we do with it? Like, we don't get it. We don't understand. Let's figure it out, and if we can't figure it out, sometimes we don't do anything with it. We're like, I don't know what to do with it, so I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to do stuff that I know what to do. Like you said, I'm going to poop, I'm going to eat, I'm going to go, mow my lawn, I'm going to whatever, go get a job, factory, whatever. But we don't know what to do with it. I love that. That was so brilliant what you were sharing. We don't know what to do with that. We don't know what to do with these, ideas, these gifts, these things that bubble up. Or like, I know I have this thing, but I don't know what to do with it. Then I wonder if that's even true, right? Like, again, actually, like if you get out of like the idea of what you should be doing, we just allowed space for it to make itself clear, like then we probably would know what to do with it, like automatically, right? But like we don't. I think that's one of the keys anyway, is that we don't, the driving energy, or if you want to call it masculine or whatever we're calling it, but like that's like go do. It's important, which you're right. I think you kind of referenced this earlier. Like there is an importance to that, but like when it's not connected from just what's more connected to what's just kind of emerging, what's really feeling like what's bubbling up and wanting to emerge, then that's where we have kind of an insane world, I think. I don't know. This is a theory. I don't know. So it seems to be something to it. I don't know. What's your reflection on that?
Well, it seems to me that there's not a lot of babies that design airplanes. And we wouldn't expect them to.
Right.
But then we look at ourselves and we've got, we don't know where something fits, some part of us, some quality of us. I think there's something self-indulgent and spinning in that process, because one thing that'll snap us out of that is someone say, hey, can you cook me breakfast? Right? We don't go, oh my God, what am I going to do with my gifts? none of that exists when you get hired in a job, or your wife asks you to make them dinner or buy me some champagne and take me on a date. We're going to go dancing. Like, there's just no more, what am I doing with my gifts? And I'm too sensitive. A lot of that goes away. I think where it shows up is really in the realm of authenticity and creativity. And if I do relax, like you said, then I think we get both the, oh my God, yes, I have a vision for creating airplanes, and I'm a freaking baby. That means I need to go get a degree, and I need a mentor, and I need to start at step one. Of course, I don't know what to do with my vision and my gifts. I'm a freaking baby relative to my gifts and my vision. And then there's the, oh, I've been a coach for 10 years and I'm struggling. And I work with a lot of people who, I kind of work with two types of people. One is they've been in a career for a long time, they're super successful, but they're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't play this stupid game anymore. And they're like swinging to the other end of the dream, kindness, compassion, embodiment spectrum. The body's breaking down. They just can't play the game anymore. The other end of the spectrum is they've been in the embodiment world, the spiritual world, the fantasy world, the energetics world, and they've got no traction in the real world. And their stories aren't helping them get into the real world. So I worked with both of these extremes, and I give them the other extreme, and that tends to help a lot. And so the person who's, let's say, well, the man who says, I'm struggling to be a man. No, they're not. They're struggling with all their stories and expectations. It's for the most part mind. And like you said, if we relax, then we get a feeling of oh, that's me as a man. And so somehow we've got to reconcile ourselves as feeling beings and sensing beings and knowing and intuition, everything that comes out of just having a body and being in a body. And then being a mental being, in that we tell stories, do expectations, and we've got to sort that out. And so these two things seem to be the playground that I get excited about. And that's, to me, where authenticity and integrity live, is in the alchemy of these things: narrative, embodiment. How am I navigating these experiences? And I'll just finish with that in mind. Then we can surrender to, I'm new at marketing, and I need to have conversations with people, energy scanners, marketing people, lots of other people, to reflect what the hell I'm doing and where it's useful. And I need to feel that, hey, it feels really good to make breakfast.
Right.
And then have the narrative of like, would that make sense to have as a job or not? I want to do transformational breakfast cooking. Maybe. So all of that, it's about letting the genius out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's great. That's really wonderful. Really wonderful. I wanted to circle back. I mean, all this is genius, what you're sharing. I'm so grateful. Like, you got into martial arts, you mentioned, and then Boy Scouts too. Was that something you were kind of funneled into at first, or was it something you had a natural desire to get into? I was just kind of wondering, like, how you got into it, especially the martial arts.
I'll throw band into that, music and band. So I did guitar, piano, didn't like it. Did guitar, didn't like it. Did trombone, was really good in junior high. Got brought into the high school band because they needed someone. But I didn't like the music. I didn't like music. I didn't have any joy. I was like, why am I doing? I had talent, but no direction, enthusiasm, or discipline. And so finally, I let my mom let me sell the trombone. And then within a very short amount of time, I discovered ska. And I was like, I wish I had a trombone. So that's sort of a prelude to the Boy Scouts and other things, martial arts, because I don't remember how I got into Boy Scouts, but it wasn't something that was me saying, I see them doing that, I want to be able to do that. With the martial arts was a little more obvious because I went to it for daycare when I was 8, but then when my stepbrother came to live with us, he's 12 years older, he had been doing martial arts, so I just went with him and we did martial arts. But around the time, and I had a talent for it, but also this is interesting. In the martial art I was in, they named the moves things like wrist lock number 1 through 10, kick defense number 1 through 12. I remember back then hating the naming system. This makes no sense. What about wrist lock 1.2 if I turn my foot the other way? What if the person throws a punch while I'm doing the thing? Like, how do you name these things when there's infinite variables? Right. Fast forward, that's how people structure their frameworks in a really lit up, heartfelt way. But back then, it was just frustrating. And then I had the opportunity to test for my black belt. I didn't want my black belt. It didn't mean anything to me. And I had weird experiences, like in tournaments, doing sparring, where I'd lose. And it felt like I was losing, like, because they weren't seeing my strikes and what I was doing. And then it's like, oh, but the referee knows the other person. It's like, what's going on here? And so there's this cycle of never quite, like, there was nothing I could do to feel confident. So the black belt meant nothing to me. And on top of that, my understanding at the time was I would have to pay $200 and some for a black uniform and a few $100s to test for the black belt. I was 14-ish. Like, that's stupid. Like, why would I do that? I don't even want any of this. At that time, my older brother, had taken me to start seeing this other teacher. This guy was the bomb. This guy had an amazing story. This guy was legit. This guy, like, and then training and doing it was amazing. So, like, I'd rather go be a white belt over here than get this black belt. So all along the way here, I was, invited into things. And for the most part, didn't know what I liked. And what I liked or didn't like wasn't really part of the conversation. Alex, do you want to get good at this? Alex, you have a talent. Where do you want to take this? Like, I wasn't given, or my agency wasn't honored in any of those kind of ways, at least for the most part. It probably was in certain ways, but globally speaking, it wasn't. Because I didn't grow up with a sense of, like, I'm in charge and I'm an author of my life. It took a lot to even start breaking that, to have a sense of, right, I'm actually creating my life. And I could go there with the manifestation conversations. Like, there's so much explanatory system of you're creating your life and all of that, but I didn't actually have the experience of it really until I moved to Hawaii. Felt at home for the first time. Like, even going to Hawaii was, this is something I want to do, but even that had some mixed motivations. And then we left Hawaii and spent a year in Florida. My dad had dementia, was going to pass, and that my mom needed some help. I knew I was going to be there till he died, which is what happened. And I knew I don't want to lease. I don't want to rent. I don't want a fixed place. What I do want is to go where I'm called, contribute, make a difference, and then go where I'm called and contribute, make a difference, and just keep doing that. And then what happened is my wife comes up with pet sitting and house sitting. And just like that, we spent the next 4.5 years, East Coast, West Coast of the US, pet sitting, house sitting, while having a remote coaching business, while she had a local business. Like, we wove together quite a bit of complexity and had a really interesting adventure. And I would say it was in that, this constant rebirth, this constant death, this constant leaving a house, this constant creating a new relationship, establishing myself in a new space, seeing the contrast between what I choose and what other people are choosing, so many iterations of that put in place for me. I know how to choose based on what works for me. But it wasn't wasn't like a one-day breakthrough. And I did a lot of like one-day breakthroughs. I threw a lot of money to try to solve this, but it was life leading me. And it was me surrendering to my life and experimenting and screwing up. And now that we're in a place of our own, it came together by a lot of magic, a lot of synchronicity, a lot of intuition, and a lot of yes to this, yes to this. Not yes, I'm going to make it happen, but yes, this is true for me. And that yes, like an improv, like yes and, is calm and creative and emergent, and we couldn't have planned for it. And I love that. And with that foundation, then I'm also able to start planning longer term. So my maturity in terms of long-term planning, long-term contribution, long-term vision, and especially vision that I don't doubt, it has been accelerating. And all of that is the kind of stuff that I help other people do. It's like, it took me this long and it takes them this long.
Right, exactly. Isn't that the gift of what we can do for the people we support out there? And I would say, like, with my scanning, it's like, took me 1,000 energy scans to feel like I was like a master of it, but I can cut that down into maybe 1/10 of the time with my students, because I didn't have anybody mentoring me in that particular way. I didn't have a mentor for that. It was my own thing that came to me to do in my way anyway. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What I love about what you're saying there is that for you, your experience is, it seems, just reflecting what I'm hearing, is that, again, this more not labeled as a masculine way, set a really powerful foundation for you again and again, is sort of what I'm hearing. Like, you weren't seeking out martial arts. It just kind of emerged. There it is. I'm doing martial arts. It's the end of this thing, right? You weren't planning to be in San Mateo. It just, by looking for what was true for you, by focusing on that, it just kind of emerged. Like, oh, this is true. And so you're able to settle in this deeper foundation of your being, settle into it, really being that deeper strength. And then from that place, like, this natural kind of masculine energy arises, like, oh, now I see this. Boom, 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 boom. And I just think that's so cool. That's so beautiful. I mean, I think, that really, I think everybody's a little different, but like, I think in general rule, that's what we see a lot, is like, when we listen to, again, if we look at it as feminine, I don't know, but like, again, what's feminine, what's masculine, but that feminine energy is something that's more associated with feminine sort of energy, receptive, not trying to get out there and get it, but just gathering sort of, or, tuning in, whatever you want to call it. And then when you're settled in that, then it'll just naturally emerge. Oh, we got planning to do. Boom, 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 boom. That's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful journey that you've been on. And I know that just because I know you a little bit, Alex, I know, like, there's times when it's been, we've tried to experiment in other ways, right? I think maybe we'll do this one, right? And then we try to bring something else out in the world, but it wasn't fully settled, right? So then it doesn't really, you learn from it, it's all perfect, but it's like, it doesn't really go too far. And then all of a sudden we're back to the drawing board, right? So that's what the audience, might experience too, like that. Just listening, it's like, wow, back to the drawing board again and again. And that's one of the keys I've heard from other conscious male leaders, is the big stuff that they are able to accomplish comes by letting it really settle in, the big thing, so to speak, the thing, whatever it is, letting it really settle in rather than try to end run it and make something happen, because it just, it's not sustainable. It doesn't have a deeper root, right? It just blows right away eventually before you know it. Oh, anyway, so that's what I've been hearing from you. And from all these, conversations that I'm having with men, it's like, that's pretty beautiful. You're able to trust that, because as men, as guys or whatever, like, we're taught, just go make it happen, brother, just no bullshit, and then, we don't know what to do. So we just make shit up, like, I guess I'll do this, I guess I'll do that. And some of the guys get lucky and maybe it ends up working out just fine for them. But a lot of us end up in jobs that we hate, and relationships that don't work for us, and like all these different issues, drinking beer and thinking it's about, football on Sundays only, or I don't know, like whatever, whatever people get into. And yeah, when they're honest, they've got a feeling of like not this deeper aliveness that you're talking about today. Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful, Alex. So thank you for sharing all that. I do, if there's anything you want to share about that, let me know. But I do have maybe one or two final questions for you today. But
Yeah, shoot.
yeah, okay. So I was wondering, like, this is a question because it started emerging. I'm starting to ask like each guy about this. Have you felt like, as growing up or later in life, that because you're a more sensitive kind of male energy, that you ever encountered a sense of the outer bully, like people saying, like maybe being bullied as a kid, especially, but like even as you get older, like, you're wrong, you're different, and being like, I just using that label, but bullied, like someone trying to give you a hard time and type of thing about, who you are, or making you wrong, or, guys can be like pick on you and all that stuff. Say, oh, you're weak, huh? Bam, bam, bam. Like start. Like, I know you're a martial arts. I didn't get it as much, but as a kid. But I'm just curious, because a lot of the guys I've been talking to, that hasn't been the case. But I'm just curious if you ran into that much in your life.
The way you talk about it, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Typical bullying, or anything that I'm thinking of as bullying, I really never experienced. Though there was one time where, like in 5th grade or so, this neighbor was jealous of me for something, and then we got into like a really, really brief fight on the walk home. But that wasn't bullying. And what I have experienced, and maybe this goes into the spectrum of bullying, is a sense of, it's part being bulldozed and part being sort of feeling small, or it's something, but something like small or powerless. I'll give you an example. There's certain people who we might say like, oh, this guy's like a man's man.
Mm-hmm.
Cars, guns, alcohol, stuff like that. Smart, normal men, not exceedingly toxic or anything, just that what we might think of as a stereotypical archetype. And I find that though, when I have conversations with men like them, they don't ask a whole lot of questions. There's not really a lot of room for me to contribute to the conversation. That they'll talk a lot. And if I ask a question, if I negate something they say, if I agree with something they say, like almost no matter what my role is, there's a certain antagonism to that, to them, to their conversation. So I've noticed that a bunch of times. It was my birthday last weekend, and I, in the previous week, had some really big insights around an old traumatic experience I had with my dad's horse. My thumb had gotten bitten by a horse when I was feeding it sugar cubes, and I'd done work around it. But what that story meant to me, still was embedded in me, was, here I am trying to give this horse what it wants, and I'm getting hurt and punished for it. So it was very much this pattern of, I'm trying really hard to do the right thing, and then bad things are happening, and I'm powerless to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So, wow, huge breakthrough to see that pattern. And I knew, okay, I want, and by the way, I had a huge shift in that process, but I also knew and had a vision for going and doing like a leadership horse training experience for my birthday. So I started to put that in motion, and it just wasn't going anywhere. I found one person, they were very expensive and didn't feel right. And my wife actually reacted to it, and I got all like, no, but I'm worth it. And right. So, and then I let it go and thought, okay, it's just not coming together. And then I got another vision. I'm gonna go see some friends down here and down there for my birthday. And I'm really feeling I want to see some friends. And we did that. And then someone showed up to facilitate this horse session down 2 hours down south where I was already going to be, which is amazing. So I went and had that session, had a tremendous experience. One of the first things the horse did was take my finger. And the facilitator's like, I've never seen this horse nibble or bite on somebody's finger. And I got to say like, okay, that's enough. And I thought it, she said it, like I just took care of little Alex. A huge physiological shift, happened. But the point of the story right now is the bullying part. One of the things she had me do was when the horse crowded me, how do you feel about that? And ultimately get up and make some movements, take up some space. And if I need to, give a little bit of a bump to the horse. Daniel, that felt so fake. It felt so fake to basically in my body saying, back off. And of course the horse is like, whatever, whatever, dude. So what it took to start feeling my body, the ability that I actually want you to move away, was hard. It was really tough. I can see that connected to things like value and boundaries, a whole bunch of narrative, but the direct experience was just tough. And so doing it, practicing it, seeing that that something other than what I thought was possible was actually possible, see the impact in the real world with the real horse. Sensitive men need this kind of stuff where we get out of our heads and our fantasies and our stories and our conclusions and our limiting beliefs and our labels and our self-definitions and everything, and our wrong interpretations of our sensations, and stop just responding to our own inner stuff and actually start to respond to and be responded to by actual real life. I think for me, it's been true, for my clients, it's true. When we start to marry all that inner world with real life, bumping into molecules, then we start to get traction and things start to make sense. And it makes sense at a mental level enough, and it makes sense at a body level. It's like, right, I am good at this. So it deals with imposter syndrome, it chips away at that. But I think even more important than that, it starts to create real life sensations of good feelings. It's like, it's okay to feel good, even grateful for who I get to be. And I think that's the path that I care about for myself and for people. I guess that's my relationship to bullying.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's a cool story. I mean, the sense of bullying from a horse. I wouldn't have expected that one, but that makes sense. I mean, they're big animals and everything, right? So it's like to be able to stand in your power, so to speak, your power, your presence in that scenario. That's cool. One last question. Martial arts, is something that's been huge in your life, as part of your life. And I know that you went to a pretty high level of actualization in that area compared to most people. Okay. So I know there's like always somebody that's so many people that have gone so much farther. I get that, but like you went to a pretty high level with that. I was wondering, given that unique experience in that particular area, calls to me to ask about, do you feel that helped you to balance some of the balancing of your energy with the sense of, again, just what we're calling feminine and masculine? And if so, very brief, I know we only have so much time left, but like very brief, like how do you feel it did that for you? I'm really curious about that.
The martial arts I did were pretty combat oriented, especially the second one that I spent the majority of the time on and feel most influenced by.
Mhm.
I think, to your question, the most important thing I could say right now is, if our body's got this ability to throw a punch and do a
Mhm.
kick and a knee and whatever it is, and to gouge an eye or whatever,
Mhm.
there's a way in which our body is like, thank you. Thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me experience that, to do these things. Um, it doesn't have to be about the things we get worried about. I don't want to hurt someone. I used to do a lot of self-defense teaching, and especially for women. And one of the things I learned in that was, like, you're lying to yourself if you won't admit that you love this. And that's what just about everybody gets to come to. It's like, oh my God, breaking a board is amazing. Taking someone down is so amazing. That's different, of course, than the idea of being in law enforcement or actually having to defend yourself. Nobody's like, I just defended my life and that was fun. The power, the warrior archetype, the aliveness and all the chemicals, everything that goes with it, of letting our body go to that point, is super balancing and healthy. And it's the opposite of, as a man, I'm also going to go get my nails done. I did that for my wedding back in like 2008. Get a massage, all the self-care. And so if I'm doing something that honors me, it's self-care. If that's learning to knife fight or shoot a gun with responsibility, or drive a car, or ride a horse, or plant a garden, or make eggs and a souffle, it's all allowed. And then the question is just, what are you authentically interested in, called to do, curious about, and let all the rest of the labels drop away.
Nice. Oh, that's so beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, Alex. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely get up in our heads about what we think we should be doing. And is it a good idea? I don't know. Martial arts, is that a good idea for me? I don't know. Do I want to fight people? I want to learn how to fight people, or like all the different ideas about why you might want to do something. It's like, well, I love that you talk. Yeah, I mean, the little bit that I do with martial arts, or have done with martial arts, it's like, yeah, it's just fun. It's doing those punches and different things, and whatever. My male ego would say, "Wow, I would really whooped his ass right there." Just, it's, I wouldn't really want to hurt somebody because I've never been that person, but like, maybe to defend myself or others, maybe, but it just, but like, it's just like that sense of like, wow, yeah, woo, I can really do this, and it just feels good. It just,
I think that's really important, and I'll leave that as a takeaway for myself. It's like, one side, it's important for us to be able to say, I could whoop some ass, and to say, like, I could share some wisdom.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I appreciate it so much, Alex. This is totally amazing. I mean, I knew it'd be amazing. It was even more amazing. I thought it would be talking with you on this subject. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Daniel. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately, to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.